to today's Google Hangout. This is our final one with our Warner Robins candidates for mayor. As you know, Randy Toms and Joe Musselwhite were the top two vote getters in the general election in November, so they will face off on December 3rd. You can ask questions via Twitter throughout this. It'll be short, about 30 minutes or so. I do have room for a couple more questions, so you can ask those questions on Twitter using hashtag WRMayor. Gentlemen, can you put in your headphones? I think we are going to get a feedback problem here.
I don't have mine in front of me, so.
Yeah, so as I was saying, you can tweet us at hashtag 4WRMayor and let us know if you've got some extra questions for the candidates that we haven't asked. Also, you can find my Google Plus account at Christina.Wright10 on Google Plus, and you can ask questions there live. The ones that you vote for the most and float to the top, I can make sure I ask the candidates those before we get off of here. Like I said, this will be about 30 minutes long. If you miss a part of it or all of it, you're able to watch it. The recorded version will be on Macon.com shortly after we finish. We will use sound effects for our time limits. The candidates have 1 minute to answer each question and 30 seconds each to respond. Let's see. Excuse me. They will each get 2 opening statements, and they will get a 2-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. And for the questions, like I said, they get 60 seconds to answer their own question, and then they will have 30 seconds to respond to their opponent if they choose. We're going to go ahead and say hi to our candidates here. We have Joe Musselwhite, recently retired Public Works Director.
Hello, Christina. Randy, how are y'all today?
Doing well, doing well. And Randy Toms, a retired city firefighter.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Christina. Hello, everybody listening.
Okay, gentlemen. Well, let's get started with your opening statements. Again, you have 2 minutes to give us an opening statement. Joe Musselwhite.
Yeah, I am Joe Musselwhite. I'm a candidate for mayor in Warner Robins. I have a wife of 37 years, 2 daughters-in-law, 2 grandchildren. I have 3 sons. One of them has not married, has never been married. He actually still lives at home, and we're glad to have him here. I worked with the city for 21 years. 19 of those years was in upper level management as public works director. I managed a balanced $8.4 million budget my last full year of employment with the city. I managed 90 people. I've been real instrumental in the infrastructure of the city and its progress and growth. For 15 years, we were said to be one of the best places to live, work, and raise a family. Because of the growth and positive efforts we had in Warner Robins, brought in some businesses. We need more, but I have been a part of that, and I look forward to being a part of getting that back on track and moving in that direction in the future. I was born in Houston County in 1953 in a clinic. That was back when you're born. If everything's okay, you come home the same day. So I was fortunate enough to be healthy, and my mother was, and we come home that day. And I've lived in Warner Robins for 60 years. This is my home. I have a passion for the community. I love the people. I love all the people of the city, not just some of them. And I look forward to serving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. And Randy Toms, please.
Well, thank you again. Thank you to the Macon Telegraph and for having this, and for the folks out there listening and participating. My name is Randy Toms, and I have lived in Warner Robins all of my life. I spent 1 term in the military out at Hill Air Force Base, ironically, in Utah, and worked out there. And I went to school here. I grew up here. Been married to my wife Jane for 31 years. We have 2 children. Both are married. And my son has a little girl, and my daughter has a little girl and a little boy that range from 2.5 years old to 2 months old. So that's my favorite job is being a granddad, and I really enjoy that. I was a firefighter for a little over 27 years with the city of Warner Robins. I know about the city of Warner Robins. I know what it's like. I know what the employees need to do their jobs and how they need to be treated. And I know about the citizens, and I've always been a part of the community. I'm an ordained minister through Southside Baptist Church. I'm the chaplain to the Warner Robins Fire Department and to the Georgia Association of Fire Chiefs. I've been excited to be a part of people's lives, not just in Warner Robins, but throughout the Middle Georgia area and throughout the state. For some reason, I got involved in service to people as a young adult, and ever since then, that's just been a part of my life. All I'm asking for is a chance to continue to serve the citizens of Warner Robins so that I can have a positive impact on what happens in Warner Robins and what happens in the Middle Georgia area. We've got to come together and do things better. Warner Robins is a great place to live. It's a great place to live, work, and raise a family, to play and do everything else that we do in Warner Robins. But we can always do better. So I ask for your support, your prayers, and your vote on December the 3rd.
Thank you, Randy. Again, we're going to get into our questions here. I'm actually a little excited about the breadth of questions that we received to the Telegraph. 2 of them will be mine. I'll let you know which ones. And to our readers, our viewers, again, you can tweet questions to hashtag the number 4 WRMayor, or you can find my Google Plus account, which is Christina.Wright10@gmail.com, of course, and ask questions there. The ones that float to the top, I'll try to be sure to get those in at the end. So we'll start with you, Randy. This is a question from the Telegraph. You have 1 minute to answer. You have a lot in. I'm sorry, Joe. Can you put in your headphones? I think we're getting feedback from you. Thank you. Just a second, I'll let him get those in.
Can you hear me now?
I surely can, and I can't hear myself coming back, so that's a good thing. Thank you so much, Joe. Randy, so you have a lot in common, the 2 of you. You're well known around town, albeit for different reasons. You're both retired city employees. You're both our so-called blue-collar candidates. And, of course, you're both in the runoff. What makes you stand out from your opponent?
Well, I think you're right. We do have a lot in common. The things that I think I bring to the table are the ability to bring people together for a common purpose. I've been used to do that, like I said, not only in town with different organizations that I've worked with and held positions in, like with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, how I stepped in and was able to work in that association and that organization, but also with the fire department and how I've helped out with that, ministering to people and being with people and helping people get through tough situations, but also throughout the state, working with other fire chiefs and other firefighters throughout the state legislators at times, working for a common purpose. And I think that I just have the type of leadership skills, the kind of leadership techniques that bring people together and realize that I don't have the whole answer, but together we can do it better.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. And Joe, same question. What makes you different? What makes you stand out from your opponent?
I've also worked in a lot of community activities. I never held a boot for firemen. I put money in the boot. I served the city. I worked 21 years as a city servant. I've attended a lot of schools, code enforcement, every class relevant to managing the city. I've taken it in the last 10 years. I graduated from the chamber leadership class in 2011. I think the biggest thing that separates from me my opponent, like he said, he and I do have a lot in common. He's a good guy. He's a good friend of mine. I think a lot of Randy. But what separates me from Randy, and the reason I'm running for mayor today, is because I have the relevant experience it takes to run the city. When we can all bring people together and we can execute a plan, and when the plan turns into action, then we make progress.
Thank you, Joe. And Randy, you have 30 seconds to respond to Joe's answer.
Well, I just want to say, as far as training goes, I have leadership training from people throughout the world. I've had, leadership, NIMS, National Emergency Management Training, that teaches me how to not manage 500 people at one time, but teaches me how to work with each department director so that we can accomplish the goal and with a span of control and with a unity of command. And I think that's the way we have to progress to move forward with the city of Warner Robins.
Okay. Thank you. And Joe, 30-second rebuttal.
Yes, ma'am. I also have NIMS training. I'm a certified incident commander. That's a small part of city government. We got a $37 million budget. We got to know where the money comes from and what it takes to make the city operate.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And we're gonna go. Joe, you'll get this question first. It comes from one of our Twitter followers, Armor Eric. With BRAC the biggest issue of the campaign, how do you see yourself handling this with little or no experience dealing with the military? And Joe, you'll start off. You have a minute response.
Well, I've actually got more experience with the military than people realize. I was involved in the 2005 BRAC. My part was small, but I was there. I actually rode in a car 20 cars back with the mayor at the time. I know General George. I know Colonel Hill. And, of course, General McMahon that heads up the partnership. And I made it clear that we'll have our resources available and help them any way. They are very qualified to handle the needs and means of Robins Air Force Base. And as a community and as a mayor, all we can do is make ourselves available to add to that effort when we're called upon.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And Randy, same question.
Well, I think I'm the one that fits into the little category. I was in the Air Force for one term, and I do understand how the Air Force operates as far as chain of command in the Air Force. In fact, the fire department and the emergency services pattern their chain of command much after that. So I understand how to work with people in the military and how to go about getting things done the military way. But again, the thing I have the advantage of is that I know how to work with people like Eric, and who have been in that area for a long time, and other people who have a lot of experience in that area. I want to do everything I can for the city of Warner Robins to come together and be the biggest supporters and the biggest cheerleaders we can be for Robins Air Force Base. I want to be the one who inspire volunteers to start working now so that we can be what we need to be when and if BRAC gets here. And that's where I think that my little experience with the Air Force has a lot to do with it, is I know how to bring people in.
Okay, thank you, Randy. And Joe, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, I appreciate what he says. I don't want to be a cheerleader. I want to be an active part of the situation and the purpose of things being stable for Robins Air Force Base, and I will do that any way I can. We always have. We do more for Robins Air Force Base now than the community really knows.
Okay. And Randy, you have 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, I just want to clear up when I said the cheerleader. I'm not running to be the mayor of Robins Air Force Base. I'm running to be the mayor of Warner Robins. And I think Warner Robins needs to get everything that we can in order so that we're in a supportive role of everything that Robins Air Force Base and the 21st Century Partnership needs us to do when the time comes for us to stand up and get the job done. We are a great city, and we do know how to come together and get things done. I'm excited to be the future leader to help make that happen, and that's why I need people's support to finish this job.
Thank you, Randy. And I wanted to give you guys a reminder. I don't think I went over the two sounds that we'll use. The ticking clock means you have 15 seconds left, and then the doorbell is your time is up. So we're going to follow about the same thread as our last question. One of our readers asks, what qualifications or background do you have to lead a city the size of Warner Robins? And for this question, we will start with Randy.
Well, you know, the thing is that I've been with the city for 27 years, and I have a college degree. I have a lot of experience working in the chain of command. I have a lot of experience working incidences where you need to come together and work together. My experience is again on a local level and on a statewide level is knowing how to work together to get things done. As the mayor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to know how to work with every department head to make sure that their department is the best it can possibly be. My experience is encouraging people to step out and do bigger things than they think they're capable of doing. The city of Warner Robins is about bringing a service to the citizens. And what I want to do, and my experience is encouraging people to be the best they can be in the job that they're doing. And that's the experience I bring to the table as a leader that knows how to work and get the best out of the people that are there.
Thank you, Randy. And Joe.
I've actually worked in the city's budgetary process. I've created, presented, and balanced 19 budgets in a row. The last budget, as I said, was $8.4 million. 90 employees in the department, managed probably $40 or $50 million of SPLOST funding, which, you know, this in turn makes a better quality of life for the citizens. I also know the department heads in the departments. I appreciate them all. We have a very hard group of hardworking people in city government. Everybody needs leadership. And what I'm going to bring to City Hall is leadership, transparency, compassion. I'm going to be available to work with everyone, and we're going to move the city of Warner Robins forward.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Randy, you've got a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, I know the budget process too. I know where the money comes from. I know that you can't spend more money than you take in. I understand all that. I've owned small businesses of my own in the past, and I know how to keep it within a budget. But again, I know how to work with each department director on finding the money that's coming in, having them use the money the most wise way that they can, and keeping the budget intact. I understand all of that.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. And Joe, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, you can look in the budget book at the pie, and it'll tell you about the city's budget. That's just part of the picture. The city right now is operating on some money that won't be here 6 or 7 years, such as SPLOST money. We've got a pretty big process here. Property taxes are a small part of operating the city, and there's just a lot more to it.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And Joe, you actually just hit on something that may go with this next question. Our reader asks, under past mayors, council approved bonds to spur growth for things such as the wastewater treatment plant, extending sewer lines, and most recently, the law enforcement center. But both of you have said you will not float bonds for any more 2012 SPLOST projects. Are you against growth in our city? And Joe, you'll start with a minute answer.
Well, the past question that I remember answering was not about a bond; it was about a loan. There's a big difference in bonds and loans. We have to watch our SPLOST collection process real close and make sure that the money's coming in. If we specify for, say, recreation complex, if we designate the money coming in for that purpose, we could start work next week, and we would never have to borrow money or get behind the 8 ball to complete that project. I do not believe in borrowing money that you don't need. You've got to pay it back. The city's got some debt now that needs to be paid back. That is reference to SPLOST. I am certainly positive for growth, and I would look at it real close. But we're gonna move forward.
Okay. And Randy, same question.
Well, I actually remember it the same way. I remember it being, would we get a loan to finish certain projects? And but the thing I think is that, and we talked about how that the SPLOST money coming in is projected to be lower than it had been anticipated. And so I think the thing that we need to do immediately start looking at bringing new businesses in so that we can boost the amount of income that's going to be coming in through the SPLOST project. The SPLOST is an incredible thing. You know, when you're out in the neighborhood and you're seeing people from different areas and they're spending money in our community, that's what a SPLOST is really all about. So I think we got to boost business. We got to encourage new businesses to come into our town so that we can finish the projects we need. I don't want to borrow money. I don't want to borrow money. I want to look at every avenue that we have to provide the services that we need, however.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to give y'all the 30-second rebuttal, but I wonder if both of you can address for our viewers, what's the difference between a bond and a loan? Both of them, you borrow money in advance of having it, and you pay interest on it once you pay it back. Joe, you will have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, in the case of the city, if you get a conventional loan, a regular loan, the interest rate will be higher. We can actually go through GMA and entities of this nature and get governmental bonds that the interest rate is lower and they're paying back, and you're actually putting up a part of the city for collateral.
Okay, and Randy, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, I can't say I disagree. I think it's a matter of interest rate and being the best we can, the most wise we can with the money. I don't necessarily exclude the idea of using bonds, because I think we can. We have to believe in ourselves enough to maybe do that at times, but we just need to be real careful that we're always being the best stewards we can with the city's money.
Okay, thank you, Randy. And I'm sorry, gentlemen, could you remind me who started that question? I believe it was Joe.
I think so.
Okay, so next question goes to Randy first. The Planning and Zoning Board and the Appeals Board has seen some hot topics, some hot activity the last couple of years, with residents contesting the board's decisions. Some have complained the planning and zoning ordinances need to be updated, and that board members don't have enough experience in these matters to make those decisions. As a new mayor, would you support an overhaul of planning and zoning? And we'll start with Randy for that one.
I would certainly support, not only support, but I would highly encourage taking a look at planning and zoning and seeing, you know, to me, not just in the last few years, but for a long time, and partly it's been a good thing that's caused it. For a long time, Warner Robins grew so quickly that we were doing a whole lot of zoning and very little planning. And so what I want to do is I want to look at the whole system, and if it needs revamping, then we revamp it. But what we got to do is we got to sit down and take a serious look at planning and zoning and make sure that we're doing more planning and then doing the zoning. And so I think that there are some issues in planning and zoning that need to be looked at, but I think we need to look at it with the idea that we need to do what it takes to control the growth of our city more than we have been able to because of the speed of growth in the last 10 or 12 years, excluding the last few years because it slowed down some. But for a while we were growing at such a pace that it was really hard to keep up with.
Thank you, Randy. And Joe, same question.
Well, the first thing I'd like to clarify is the people that sit on the board are not the problem. They're volunteers that do a good job. They make decisions on the facts, rules, laws, ordinances, local, state, and federal. That's before them. They're certainly not to blame. The problem is the ordinances themselves. They're obsolete. They need to be updated. The case of Rose Hill, I wouldn't want a crematory in my backyard either. I would have been, if I was a resident there, I'd have been down there with them protesting the other night. I don't think the people that sit on the board are the problem. I think they made an earnest decision with the facts that the city give them to make the facts upon, and they're not to blame here. The ordinances themselves and the lack of updating them is the problem.
Okay, and Randy, you've got a 30-second rebuttal on that.
I agree that the people on the board are maybe not the problem, but I think we need to take a look and make sure that in cases like what we're dealing with right now is that the ordinances match the best they can to state laws, and make sure that that everything that is done is best for the community, the citizens of Warner Robins, and not just haphazardly done. That's all I'm saying about that. I'm not blaming the individuals, and I'm certainly not blaming Rose Hill people, the citizens of Rose Hill, for not wanting a crematory in their backyard. I've been out there, I've looked at it, and that's it's just a problem right now that has to be dealt with.
Okay. And Randy's 30-second rebuttal. Sorry, Joe, 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, you know, plans are submitted to city engineer, and they review them, and they approve them, and they check the zoning, and they check the drainage. They check every factor in those plans, and then they give a permit. The planning and zoning doesn't do that. If there's a problem with some plans that come in, the time to address it is before the permit is issued, and talk to both sides and try to work it out. But I'll say again that we have ordinances that need to be updated.
Okay. Okay. And both of you touched a little bit on the crematorium. That's actually one of the next questions from Denise Armour. She said that y'all had danced around the answer at the last debate where you were asked about it. She wants to know, are you for or against the crematorium under construction behind the neighborhood? She also asked, is this the way you will answer in the future? Just a point of clarification, the crematorium didn't actually go through the Planning and Zoning Board. I think that some people have misunderstood. It was a permit that was issued and didn't have to go through the Planning and Zoning Board because it was already in a C2 designation. So that question, we will start with Joe. And just a reminder, are you for or against the crematorium? And is this the same way you'll answer in the future?
Well, I'm glad you cleared up where the process started at. It was not with the Planning and Zoning Board. I made it clear that I would not want the crematorium in my backyard. With that said, if it's a legal issue now, I'm not an attorney. I've read the ordinances. I've read the zoning. I have an opinion. We have legal counsel in the city, and the people at Rose Hill have legal counsel. It's a legal issue now, but my contention is if the ordinances were stronger, maybe it wouldn't be where it is. Maybe it would be, but we've got to get our ordinances up to standard. We got to assess our service area and make sure that the zoning in the areas meets what can go there in the future.
Okay, and Randy, same question.
Well, I absolutely agree. It was a ordinance issue, and the permits were issued, and I don't believe at all that planning and zoning had anything to do with it. But I think we need to look at the ordinances and make them easier for planning and zoning to prevent problems like this beforehand. Having said that, I've been out there in that neighborhood, and I've seen how close the crematorium is. I also would not want a crematorium in my backyard. I think that there's a lot of information out there from both sides, and I think it's just a real convoluted issue right now as to whether it's harmful or whether it's not. I know the neighbors out there. I know the citizens out there, many of them very well, and I agree with them that I wouldn't want that there. I know the owners of the crematorium, and I think that they were within their right to put it there with the permits that they had. And so I just think that it's a real convoluted issue that's not going to have an easy answer to it.
Okay. Thank you both. For the rebuttal, if you could, I think that you both said you wouldn't want a crematorium behind your house, but I don't know that you answered whether you're for this crematorium being built in the Rose Hill community or if you're against it. So in your rebuttal, if you can say for sure if you are for it or against it. We will start with Joe, 30 seconds.
Christina, we have to support the system that we have before us. That's local, state, federal, wherever it's at. I made it clear that the Planning and Zoning Board is not the problem. The zoning ordinances are the problem. We need to assess our area and make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen in the future.
Okay. And Randy, 30-second rebuttal.
The very first thing I said about this issue is there's no right answer to it. I'm for the citizens of Warner Robins, and I understand the situation that the people in Rose Hill and the surrounding areas are in. I'm for business in Warner Robins, and so I support new business, but there's not an easy answer, and I know I sound like a politician in that, but I sympathize with both parties.
Okay. Well, thank you, Randy. And the next question is about signage. Prior to the International City Festival, I'm sorry, this comes from Joseph P. Howard. Prior to the International City Festival, signs advertising the event were placed in the right-of-ways in places around the city. The following week, Sacred Heart Church had a festival and had numerous signs placed around the city and county. Happy hour yard sale signs in the right-of-way are a regular occurrence. Every election, including this one, we have political signs that end up on the right-of-way. What is going to be done to ensure that no exceptions are made to Warner Robins' city codes concerning the unlawful placement of signs and that violations are properly dealt with? We will start with Randy with a 1-minute answer.
Well, I think the only way you can do that is by enforcing the code that's there. Obviously, that's, and I can't disagree at all. The code is violated. I don't think any candidate, and I want to make sure people understand me on this, I don't think any candidate intentionally violates any ordinance. That is never what I'm saying. I don't. But I think that when we have help from supporters, that they get out there zealously and they put signs wherever they can. And I think that as the candidate, certainly the buck stops with us. But unless we're willing to make everyone adhere with even fines if necessary to the ordinance, that's the only way you're going to be able to regulate that. I think that what the city does is realize there's an ordinance there, but gives some leeway to the ordinance. And I don't think that, barring fines for violating that ordinance, I don't see a way around it.
Okay. And Joe, also 1 minute.
Well, here again, part of the problem is lack of knowledge. People don't know the right-of-way from private property in the right-of-way. What happens on the right-of-way? We have an ordinance in place now that permits any sign on the right-of-way, unless it's a city sign for speed limits, children playing, things of that nature, road signs. They're the only ones allowed on right-of-ways. The problem is people in good faith go out and try to advertise, and they put things where everybody can see it, and sometimes they can't see cars coming from the other direction when that happens. That's just an educational thing. When people are having an event, we could send out a form letter advising them to be 20 foot behind the edge of the curb or something of that nature and solve that problem.
Okay. And Randy, a 30-second response.
Well, again, you can't completely contain that issue unless you just really want to be hardline on it. Yard sign sales, yard sale signs on take 2 city signs. That's a clear violation, but yet people do it, and I think we're willing as a city to overlook that because people are doing it for a temporary thing. I think where it becomes an issue is when people see so many signs out there during election year and people get tired of them, and I sympathize with them.
Okay, thank you, Randy. And Joe, 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, touch on something Randy said. The problem with people putting their yard sale signs and all on public signs is they don't go back and get them, so they become litter at some point. Political signs, when I'm elected mayor, I fully intend to pass an ordinance to limit the number of them you can have in a certain area.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And Joe, you'll answer this question first. You both said you're running clean campaigns, but you have also both made side comments to people around town about one another. How about you tell us publicly what you have said and tell us what kind of leader you intend to be if you can't tell a man what you think about him in person? And that goes to Joe first.
Well, my advice to you would be don't listen to what people tell you. And if somebody told you that I said something, you bring them to me and we'll talk about it. And if I did in fact say it, we'll go find Mr. Toms and I'll tell him. I'm not a shy person. I've stayed above board here. I've slung no mud. I have none to sling. This has been a pretty good campaign with very little mudslinging, if any. You know, I've heard things too. I don't believe everything I hear. But, you know, I want people to understand that just because a campaign is running without a bunch of garbage in it, don't mean it's not a real campaign. This is just another way of doing it, people, and this is the way we need to do it in the future.
Okay, and Randy, 1 minute answer.
Well, I mean, ironically, I got talked to this morning in a restaurant this morning about something that somebody in my campaign may have possibly done. It's not said, but necessarily done. And there are people that support me. There are people that support Joe that are going to be saying things that we get the credit for. And in fact, I was told this morning that the buck stops with the candidate, and I can't argue with that ultimately. And for that, you know, any of people in my campaign that are saying things, I just ask them to stop. And I'm sure Joe feels the same way, is that this has been a clean campaign. And I like it like that, because this, whether you like it or not, this thing has now come down to a choice between Mr. Musselwhite and myself. And so we've been clean through it. Joe and I have remained friends through it, and hopefully we will be when it's all said and done. And I'm not going to get involved in telling Joe something bad about himself, because I'm my own worst critic, and I don't want him to tell me, because I can tell myself. So. Okay,
thank you, Randy. And for the 30-second rebuttals, I think I heard both of you say that neither of you have personally said something about your opponent. And if you could respond to that. Joe first.
I haven't said anything personally about my opponent. You know, if one of his people puts a sign 2 foot in front of mine is blocking mine, he didn't put it there. And you know, that's not personal. That's not politics. I mean, that's just part of the process.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. And Randy, same.
I like to tell people the positive things about me during a campaign. This is my first campaign, so no, I do not go out there and talk bad about my opponents, any of them. And I haven't during this campaign. I want to tell people who I am and what I want to bring to the city.
Okay. Thank you both. Let's see. And our final question here, unless we have any Twitter questions, I don't see any on Google+. This will be our final question, and it is from the Telegraph. Our mayor is also the manager of the city, so he works closely with the department directors. In some cities, this means department directors are asked to submit letters of resignation when a new mayor takes office, and allow the new mayor to decide whether to keep them on or bring in someone new. What are your views on Warner Robins not being one of those cities? And we will start with Randy.
Well, I'm glad Warner Robins is not one of those kind of cities, but I guess one reason why is because we have great department directors, and I think that they're all doing a great job, and I think they're all willing to work with whatever mayor comes in. I've heard that over the last 27 years of my career. Department directors say, you know, I'm not going to support one mayoral candidate over another, because whichever one gets in, they're my new boss. And so I don't personally have any desire to get a letter of resignation from any of the department directors. And so I've never even contemplated such an answer, because I think our department directors are great, and I want them to stay where they are.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. And Joe, same question.
No, I can't answer for other cities. I know how ours operates. I've been a department director under both forms of procedure here. I don't know of any department director that's ever been asked to resign when another mayor got elected, as long as I can remember in the city. People work on their own merit. People got a job to do. You know, usually when people are a department director for 15, 20, 25 years, as an actual director of that department, or even 10 years, they're probably doing a pretty good job. But my answer to it is like Randy said, we have good department directors. We got good chiefs, and all the other directors are good also. And you work on your own merit. And if you're doing your job, nobody should ever threaten your job. We're on the merit system in Warner Robins, and the department directors are the merit system.
Okay, thank you. And for your rebuttals, I think we have, well, you guys have worked for the city, and I'm sure you heard the same things I have, and it was brought up during a recent lawsuit with Fay Coulter against the city, that the so-called, the people who have worked for the city for so long may have a certain allegiance to a former mayor, and it may have caused some frictions in the last 4 years. In your rebuttal, can you speak to whether or not you'd be able to work with this team who may have some allegiances to the mayor or may not? We'll start with Randy for the 30-second response.
If your question is, do I have any problem working with the current people that are there, my answer is unequivocally no. I think that there are some issues within the city. I think the morale throughout the city employees is, for various reasons, is lower than I've ever seen it, and there's some issues that I think are very, very fixable in working with each department director to bring that morale back up, and that's one of the things I'm concerned about. But it's not to a level to where I think I couldn't work with any department director, because I know I can. Okay,
thank you, Randy. And Joe, same question.
Well, you got an electoral process here where people in the past, the past mayor you're speaking of is deceased now, and he was a friend of mine, and I worked with him, and I learned from him. I learned some things to do. I learned some things not to do. But I think people needed an alliance to the city of Warner Robins, not an individual.
Okay, that is fair. And that's all of our questions, guys. Now we'll move on to our 2-minute closing statements. And these are your final ones before the election. We have one debate later on tonight, but it'll be the last one online. So make it a good one. We will start with Joe for that. Well, no, Joe, you got the first. You got to go first for opening. So we'll let Randy go first for the closing.
Well, again, I'm Randy Toms, and I'm asking to be the next mayor of Warner Robins. I've thought long and hard about it, about being in this position to run for mayor. I have a clear message, I think, of moving the city forward, and treating all people the same. There's a lot of areas I want to work on. I'm excited about getting in and working with each department director, and giving the employees a place that they enjoy coming to work, and they do a great job. They're all great employees, but I know this, that when somebody is happy, they're more productive. And so I want to give people in the city employees, I want to give them everything I can. I want to give them everything they need to do their job. And I want to give them every ounce of respect that we can give them as a city, so that they are doing the best job for the citizens that they can possibly do. I want to make sure that the citizens know that everything that comes out of City Hall they can trust. I want to bring trust back to city government. I want to bring peace and harmony back to city government, so that they know, the citizens know, that everything we're doing is for the betterment of Warner Robins. I want to give us a safe community. I want to make sure that our public safety departments are as strong as they possibly can be. I want to make sure that we stay on an economic increase, that we want to keep things stable as far as the taxes, and that we bring in new business, and we increase that. And I want to make sure that we're out there seeking new career opportunities for our citizens that may or may not get an opportunity to work on Robins Air Force Base. I want to make sure that we're the best city that we can possibly be, not just to protect our whole community for BRAC, when and if it happens, but for everybody in our city. I want to work with the regional area so that we are everything that we need to be, and that we're doing the best. And I believe this, that together we can certainly do better.
Thank you, Randy. And Joe, you have 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Well, I support positive growth. I support small business people. I support city employees. I believe in promoting from within every time that's possible. I'm a product of that process. I believe in it wholeheartedly if you're qualified. I want to get things for boys and girls to do. I want to get the crime rate down where senior citizens can relax and get out and not be afraid to go out after dark, the ones that could be now. I want to clean up the neighborhoods, get rid of the blight. I want to work with the RDA, the Regional Commission, the Houston County Development Authority, and the Chamber, and get jobs in here. Because like Randy said, everybody can't work on Robins Air Force Base. 28% of our economy is fueled here by income from Robins Air Force Base. We need to turn those numbers around and quit depending on them so heavily. As much as we appreciate them and support them, we need to support them by having jobs here to help the community in ways other than Robins Air Force Base. We've got to get the crime rate down. We've got to get some form of transportation in Warner Robins to move people around. We've got to balance our budget every year. We've got to get these projects that are on the books. Somebody's got to execute them and put them into progress for the betterment of the community to make a better quality of life. With that said, I am Joe Musselwhite. Early voting starts tomorrow and runs the 25th, 26th, and 27th. And then election day is the 3rd. And with the people's support, I appreciate the people that already supported me. If other people come out and support me with your help, we can make this city a better place to live and work.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, gentlemen, that wraps up our final Google Hangout for this election season. I want to thank you so very much for sticking it out with us and learning about Google Hangout with the Telegraph. For our viewers, you can find a full recording of this chat on macon.com/elections and on the Macon Tell Video YouTube account. You can also find the recordings of the previous 2 chats that we did with the full 6 candidates who appeared on the general elections ballot. Please get out and vote. Voting what turnout was just a fraction of the registered voters in our November election. So let's see if we can beat that number for the runoff. Just a reminder, post 1 at-large with Mayor Chuck Shaheen and incumbent Mike Daly will also appear on the ballot. And even if you didn't vote in the general election, you can still vote in the runoff election. Also, follow the Telegraph at macon.com and on Twitter and Facebook. To get your latest elections coverage. We'll have some coverage leading up to the election as well as election night and afterwards. Thanks again for tuning in, and get out and vote. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, and thanks to the Telegraph.